Welcome to the lecture on decision under risk and uncertainty. So, now decisions based on assumptions are called as decision making under certainty. Basically, when you know the outcomes of the decision with certainty, then it is known as decision with certainty. But in most of the cases in engineering economic analysis, basically all these are predicted in future. So, these outcomes you do not know what will be the outcome. So, there is uncertainty involved with it, there is risk involved with it. Uncertainty refers to variation in actual values due to errors in estimation because of insufficient information about the factors affecting the final outcome. So, basically there are many factors, and since we do not know about the behavior of the factors, how they are going to affect, there is large amount of variation, or there may be small amount of variation in what you predict and what will be the actual outcome, and that is basically referred to as uncertainty. Risk is defined as variation in result because of random causes. So, basically when you do not know the causes, there may be any cause randomly, then that is defined as risk. So, basically we will talk about the decisions when there is risk and uncertainty, what way the decision should be made. Now, in that case, basically first of all what we see is, since the economic decisions are to be made in future, always you attach certain probability with the outcomes. So, suppose you are given certain options, you are to get certain contract, and there are three types of contracts, and the probability of getting the contracts is known to you, and every contract can be done using the alternatives, and there are few alternatives and you can select the alternatives. Now, every alternative will give you certain profit or loss if you are getting the individual contracts. So, the first thing what you do is you look at the alternatives and say that which of the alternative is least preferred inferior as compared to all other alternatives. Now, the outcomes in case of every alternative basically is also associated having certain probabilities, but still if you see that the outcomes by any of the alternative is inferior to each one of the others, in that case you say that it is the having the least preferred, and basically they are said to be the least preferred alternative is said to be dominated by other alternatives. So, basically when we talk about different kinds of alternatives, in that case we tell that which one is dominated by others, so that automatically you should leave that. Next comes the minimum aspiration level set by the company. Now, what happens that as we discussed that you have different types of outcomes, different outcomes in the different alternatives. Now, the company would like to go only for those alternatives where it will see that it should get at least minimum level of aspiration, that it fixes some amount of profit that is some minimum amount of profit or maximum amount of loss, so that if even if it gets any of the alternative, it goes to any of the alternative, it is likely to get at least some of the minimum level of profit, or it can have maximum some amount of loss. So, this is known as aspiration level set by the company. Every undertaking wishes to have certain minimum profit or maximum loss. On that basis, it sets its aspiration level. Then there are the expected values. Now, we get the expected values by taking into account the probabilities. So, basically all the values of probabilities are given the importance, and based on that the mean value of outcome is basically found out, and once you get that, the alternative which gives you the maximum expected value, basically we prefer that. So, basically this is known as expected value criterion of decision making. Then there is also a criterion, that is alternative having maximum probability. So, basically we also can decide upon which one should be chosen, and sometimes we try to go with those alternatives which has the maximum probability. So, that is known as the maximum probable criterion. So, basically we go for those. Now, after that we will have the comparison of the options which are basically achieved by using the different criterion, and then we have to ourselves judge, or the company has to judge which one should be preferred. For example, let us say you are applying for, the company is applying for getting a contract, and the contract company can get either as contract A, contract B or contract C. Now, the company getting the contract A has the probability of 0.3, for contract B it is 0.2, and for C it is 0.5. Now, once the contract is given, it was seen that it can be accomplished with different alternatives, and there are 5 alternatives which are available. So, alternative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what we see is that if the contract A is, it is getting, now if you see that the probability of this is, if you sum this, all this is 1. Now, in this case what the profit company is expected to get for all the alternatives, it is in terms of lakhs. So, what we get is here 5 lakhs, 5 lakhs and 20 lakhs. So, basically if alternative 1 is selected and if contract A is got, you have a profit of 5 lakhs, B for 5 and C for 20. Similarly, you have minus 10, 8 and 25. So, basically you are likely to get the loss when alternative 2 is selected. Alternative 3, it is 0, 10 and 24. So, in this case there is no profit, no loss, but you have, if you get contract B or C, you have the chances of getting 10 and 24, you have 5, 15 and 10 if you get alternative 4, and in this case you have minus 15, 5 and 8. So, now there is risk and uncertainty here. The probability associated with getting these contracts is this one. Now, in this case these are the profit amounts in lakhs. So, how the company will proceed? Now, let us see, we have discussed about the different criteria. So, let us see first of all if we use which of the alternative is least preferred. So, looking at the values, we have to see which of the alternative gives you minimum amount of profit, or it is giving you the inferior most results. In that case, if you use this rule, the first rule, the dominance rule, it basically tells you that if you go for alternative 5, if you see these values are inferior or not better than any of the values in the respective columns. So, that way alternative 5 can be removed for considerations. Okay. So, what we see is that since it is giving you the inferior most values, you just remove them. Now, the thing is, the next is that minimum aspiration level. Now, the minimum aspiration level can be set as by the company itself, it is set as at least 20 lakhs of profit or 5 lakhs of loss. So, aspiration level set by the company says that we cannot go for the alternatives which are basically likely to give us more than 5 lakhs of loss or less than 20 lakhs of profit. So, the aspiration level set by the company is minimum profit of 20 lakhs and maximum loss of 5 lakhs. Now, suppose this is the kind of aspiration set by the company. So, in that case, if you look at, in this case, this is okay, this is being satisfied, you have not the loss more than 5. So, A1 is okay. Now, here in fact we do not have any loss. So, we have a profit, at least having 50% probability is there that you may get a profit of 20 lakhs. So, this will go. Then if you look at this option gives you having 30% probability is that if alternative 2 is chosen, this will give you a loss of 10 lakhs. So, A2 cannot be preferred because it is giving you, it is not coming to meet the aspiration level set by the company. So, this will not be okay. Then we see the alternative 3, you have loss. So, there is no loss. So, this way it is okay, and the profit is 24, it is being met. So, that is why A3 will be okay. But if you go for alternative 4, on the loss account it is satisfying, but on the profit account it is not satisfying because the minimum amount of profit is said to be 20 lakhs. So, this is also not satisfying. Alternative 5 we have already removed because of the dominance criterion. So, if you look at that, you see that out of these 4, the 2 is qualifying. So, you can go for A1 or A3. So, aspiration level criteria gives you A1 or A3. So, you can go for any criteria either A1 or A3, which basically is giving you a that criteria by which you are meeting the aspiration level. Then next is expected values. Now, this criterion for expected values will take into account the value of these probabilities with these outcomes. So, if you take the expected values for alternative 1, it will be 0.3 times 5 plus 0.2 times 5 plus 0.5 times 20. So, it will be 2.5 plus 10, it will be 12.5 lakhs. Alternative 2, it will be 0.3 times minus 10 plus 0.2 times 8 plus 0.5 times 25. So, it comes out to be minus 3 plus 1.6 plus 12.5. So, it will be 14.1 minus 3. So, it will be 11.1. Then going to alternative 3, zero times 0.3 plus 0.2 times 10 plus 0.5 times 24. So, it will be 12 plus 2, that is 14. Then you go to alternative 4. Here you get 0.3 times 5 plus 0.2 times 15 plus 0.5 times 10. So, it will be 1.5 plus 3 plus 5. So, 8 plus 1.5, that is 9.5. Now, if you look at the values, what you see is maximum is given by this option. If you go for using expected value criterion, it will be preferred that this alternative A3 is selected, which is likely to give you a maximum value of profit of 14 lakhs. So, this using expected values, you can have this A3 preferred. Then comes alternative having maximum probability. Now, if you look at, so this is using expected value, this is using aspiration level. Now, if you take the probability into account, we know that probability of getting contract C is maximum that is 0.5. Now, in this case the maximum is 25, that is given by alternative 2. So, basically on that basis, on the basis of maximum probable criteria, you would go for the contract C under which the maximum is alternative A2. So, A2 is preferred. So, what we see is that in this case you are having different kinds of outcomes. You have to decide finally what will be the best one. So, if you look at the options which you got, in the first case anyway using the dominance you have removed the A5, but using the aspiration level set you go for A1 or A3. Using the expected values you go either for A3, and using the most probable criterion you go for A2. So, ultimately the organization can take any of these criterion and it can decide that the contract can be given to whom or which alternative will be the best preferred one, and basically based on that the estimation can be done what will be the estimated profit, and this way the estimation is done. Now, we will discuss about the decisions under case of uncertainty when it is not known what should be the probabilities associated here which is mentioned. In that case there are certain criteria which we should know. So, that is under the case of decision under uncertainty. So, when we do not know about the probabilities, we do not have much idea about the probabilities, there are few criterion which are basically reported. One is Laplace criterion. So, using the Laplace criterion basically equal probability is given to these outcomes. So, in that case the alternative A1 will give you, so since you have 3 values, it will be given 5 plus 5 plus 20 upon 3. So, basically equal probability of 0.33 is assigned. In that case A1 comes out to be 10, A2 comes out to be minus 10 plus 8 plus 25 upon 3. So, it will be 7.66. A3 will come as 0 plus 10 plus 24 and upon 3 it will be 11.33, and for alternative 4 it will be 5 plus 15 plus 10 upon 3. So, that is 10. So, in that case what you see is alternative A3 is giving you the maximum profit, where you see that the probability assigned is taken as equal, because things are, if they are not known you can assign the equal probabilities. Now, next is a criteria which is known as maximin and maximax criteria. Now, this is known as something like a pessimistic view and this is known as an optimistic view. So, what Maximin tells that basically you assume you have a pessimistic opinion, you assume that in any case you will get the one which has the minimum outcome, or you are going with the minimum value about out of all these and then you are trying to have a maximum of them. So, if you look at that using Maximin, if A1 you look at, in the A1 you have 5, A2 you have -10, A3 you have 0 and A4 you have 5. Now, in that the maximum value is 5. So, using Maximin you get, having a pessimistic opinion, you get a profit of 5 lakhs, whereas Maximax is basically maximizing the maximum values. In that case you have 20, 25, 24 and 15 in that case. So, in that case you have 20, 25, 24 and 15 and in that you basically go for 25. So, these are the two criteria which are also used. Using the pessimistic and optimistic criterion you can have this as that. The next one more criterion which is preferred is depending upon certain weightage to the optimism. We cannot have the optimism to a higher value, so we give the optimism to certain value. So, basically what we do is, that is known as Hurwitz criteria. Now, in this case, in the Hurwitz criteria, basically what we give is, you give an index of optimism. Is set. So, if this index of optimism is set, in that case it tells alpha, that is alpha 1. So, basically this will be alpha into maximum value of Eij plus 1 minus alpha into minimum value of Eij. So, basically you have the values. Now, in this case if alpha is taken as suppose 0.3, in that case using the Hurwitz criteria you have, if you take A1, what you see is maximum value is 20. So, you will take 0.3 into 20 plus 0.7 into minimum value is 5. So, it will be 6 plus 3.5, that is 9.5. Similarly, you have A2, you have 0.3 as the alpha and maximum is 25 plus 0.7 multiplied by minus 10. So, it will be 7.5 minus 7, that is 0.5. A3 if you look at, if it is 0.3 multiplied by maximum value, that is 24 and minimum is 0.70. So, that is 7.2, and of A4 it comes 0.3 as 15, 0.3 multiplied by 15 plus 0.7 multiplied by 5. So, it will be 4.5 plus 3.5, that is 8. So, using the Hurwitz criteria, what you see is your value comes out to be maximum for criterion A1, and this is based on the degree of optimism. You can have the value either as 0.3, 0.2 or any value, and that shows what is the degree of optimism that you are looking for. So, these are the different criteria upon which you can have the estimation. You can say that you can proceed with these criteria and estimate the parameters. Apart from that, you have also one criteria that is known as minimax regret criteria. So, basically all these 4 criteria are used when there is uncertainty, you are not sure about the probability values, and they are used for estimations. Thank you.